Hellos, hellos, hellos. Hello. Um, Hello. I'm gonna wait for people to come in, but hello, hello, hello. I'm just gonna keep saying hello. Oh, Lucia's here. Okay, so let's see what we got going here. I'm gonna invite Lucia. Okay, Lucia, I'm about to invite you on. You can tell that I have not been so ready for this. Yay! There you are.
Yay. Let me
Hey, how are you?
let me just fix this a little bit and see if I can.
Can you hear me well?
Hey.
Are you
Hey.
are you able to hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. I just want to make sure because my phone is slightly ghetto, and so and so we're gonna see how it goes.
Listen,
Hey.
I've been there where the little microphone gets clogged with shit
Mm-hmm.
or anything.
I've dropped this phone so many times that it's just saying F you, pretty much fuck you. So it works and then it doesn't work. So we'll see how it works.
Let's
But
put a signal like okay, good.
but yay, okay, so y'all just for those who coming in, hey everybody. I'm really excited for tonight. We're gonna be talking about learning consent through intimacy. And so I really, really wanted to have Lucia as my guest. I'm really, really excited because she's just like the energy, her like okay. I'm gonna go back. I have to say everything first of like how I like met you and then the connection and everything. So just to give a little background, I was a speaker at a sacred sexuality
Mhm.
retreat. Yes, this is
Yeah,
like yeah, this is back in I think this is in August or September of last year.
September of 2021, and
Yes,
Lady Holly and I flew out to Texas
yes.
to Nisha's sacred sexuality retreat to teach.
To teach. And so Holly and Lucia did this amazing presentation about I mean of course the aura when you're around them it's just well when I was around you I was like oh it's a lot of sexual energy, sensual energy. It's very, very powerful and potent. I just wanted to be around you. It was just overwhelming. But then you guys did like this whole like the whole the presentation, it was about consent. It really was about I didn't know the layers of it and why it was so important, and it blew my mind. And even after that event, like I started like evaluating like when I get involved with somebody or when I get intimate with someone, like the layers, the context of of consent and how important it is. And so I wanted to have this conversation with you because I think people we are unaware how important it is, especially if we want to have pleasurable experiences with another person or multiple people, of why consent matters. So I'm so happy to be doing this live right now. So thank you, thank you, thank
I'm
you.
honored, Alicia. I remember your presentation, and I also remember you just popping your booty in your presentation, and I thought, that woman is like embodied and having fun. And I kept thinking, how how are we gonna one day like connect and join forces? Because you know this road is, you think that there's so many people out there talking about sexuality, pleasure, sensuality, all these things, healing our bodies, but really there's not. When you
No,
think about like the global population and how few really people that really are who are actually dedicating their life to this and following the purpose around this. So thank you for being on that journey with me. And for everybody, I'm Lucia Polvone. I'm a somatic sex educator in San Francisco Bay Area, originally from upstate New York. And I come from, my parents are from Sicily, so I'm first generation American. And so you can imagine my journey around sexuality has been like I've been in the face of like religious shame, cultural shame, just body shame because I'm curvy with a big booty, and I just didn't fit in. And so and I was very sensual and sexual. So learning consent and intimacy has been a struggle for me personally over these years. And I this year I'm just really excited. I'm going to be 50 pretty soon. And so it,
Leo.
huh? That's
No,
right.
you're, yes. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
I'm I want to be 50 this summer. So it's been a long journey. And I want to say for all the people out there, I've been on both sides of the coin where somebody's like stepped over my boundaries because I haven't really held boundaries really well, and where I stepped over people's boundaries. Usually it's unknowingly. Usually it has been in a situation where I thought I was just like leaning in and reading the person, and or they thought they were reading me, and we just weren't communicating. So this is we need this conversation. And I know in um I wasn't taught to do this in my relationships, any relationships.
I don't think I don't, honestly I think that's the norm that a lot of us were not taught because we're just going by what we were how we were raised or what we know from like our outside environment, what we see, what we experience, or when you add on to like pain and trauma and things like that,
Right.
that's a layer of how we interact with other people. So consent is huge because I didn't even like until I actually was at the retreat, the sacred sexuality. I didn't even know how important it was just to do that if I'm just trying to like hook up, if I'm mutually like if it's like consensual. Like I
Right.
something in my mind that it had to be um like you're breaking boundaries or you're crossing lines if you hurt me, but it's something that you have to do even when you're in a consensual partnership or connection with someone because it's respect. So it's huge. So I can't wait to have this conversation. And I
Uh,
apologize. I have a puppy, y'all. I just got a puppy, so she's crying in the background, so you're gonna hear her screaming because she's a puppy. So we're gonna jump into it. So Lucia, you kind of said already who you were, that you're a somatic sex educator. And just for you guys who just coming on, I met Lucia last year. Her energy is absolutely amazing. She's a Leo. I remember this. And so that Leo, that fire energy is like overwhelming. It's absolutely amazing. If you're in her, like, you're gonna feel her presence as she talks, but it's just whew, it's a lot, but it's amazing. It's actually, it made me feel things. I was like, hold on, I feel like I'm opening up in a way that I didn't know I was opening up. So she's just amazing. But I wanted to ask you because you say you come from this Italian family and you felt, you didn't feel comfortable because, religion, everything, your body, the way it was shaped. So what led you on this journey where you are right now?
sure. That's a great question, Jaleisha. I think it was a process, right? I was actually just in another room talking about this on Clubhouse with Lady Holly. We're talking about your pussy is not broken. So I think it's a great it's a great topic to like remember the process for me. Um, I remember being 13, and um, it was Friday night, and Dr. Ruth Westheimer would come on the radio. I don't know, for people, I had a clock radio. That's how you can date me. Like that I had a clock radio and I was like listening to Dr. Ruth, and I remember she said something about getting your mirror out and finding your clitoris. Get your mirror out and find your clitoris. And I was like, she kind of looked like my mom, um, a lot like my mom. They're both like 4'11", super short, and they both have these strong accents, right? So I started to learn about my clitoris and my pussy at a very young age, but I continued to like feel really unsure of my own sexuality because I was a kind of I was a tomboy, and until sixth grade ish, even then I was still a tomboy. I love sports, but then I got my period in sixth grade, and it was like suddenly I became a woman, right? And it changed my whole life. I had breasts and I was sexualized at a very young age. So I thought that that was my role. Like my role was to be like flirty and sexy. So I tried that, but I was awkward in it. And I did not have a boyfriend at all in middle school and high. I mean, I had boyfriends like, and I had experiences, but I didn't have like my first love until college. And so I had these, but I was very physical. And so that journey, I didn't know how to understand, I didn't know really how to yield my sexual energy. I think most of us as teenage girls, like we're put into the spectrum of either frigid or sluts, right? Like,
Yeah.
so that's how we're portrayed. And that continues into like adulthood, right? We have this whole complex of like being either, you know, the mother or the lover, right? It's never the same. So those things continued in my throughout this pattern kept repeating for me. And so my journey of understanding my sexual um, potency really wasn't totally understood until like my early 30s. You know, I was 19 and I remember I was living in Spain and studying at the Universidad de Madrid. Excuse me. I just got back from Jamaica and I have a little cough. So excuse me. From the plane, I don't have COVID, by the way. um, and I remember feeling this awakening happening, but I didn't know what to call it. And so, you know, long story short, I'm looking back going, well, I was having this Kundalini awakening at 19. By 28, I got pregnant and had my child. And it was a very traumatic birth. And then I got married and I was a good wife. And I stayed in that role, um, you know, as like being the wife and mother for a long time. But around 32 is when my husband and I started to like really look seriously into like pleasure and understanding what that looked like. And I started to research extended orgasm, which really was based primarily in clitoral, you know, stimulation and really redefining what a person with a vulva and a clitoris can actually experience around pleasure. And along with that came a lot of communication. It was all, you know, the foundation was communication, being able to actually ask for and receive what you wanted in a pleasurable way. So communication, what we are talking about right now is consent culture, right? So back then in, you know, the early 2000s on my journey, we just called it communication, learning how to communicate. And there's so many different ways to communicate, but most of us are sexually lame and sensually, you know, in atrophy. We don't really notice other people. We're really stuck in our heads. And so, and also because of the culture change, societal a culture, society and culture changing around, you know, how we interact. Most people don't actually interact in person. You know, they're interacting online and they're interacting in different ways. So we, more and more people are missing the subtleties of communicating, and that's been a problem. So, but to finish the answer to your question, how I came to this place now, it's a journey and it's continued to expand and unfold. So, you know, I came from a point of like, you know, most people not really being connected to my sex, you know, my understanding of my sexuality, to, you know, being able to say I'm a pleasure instigator and a permission granter. And that's what I love doing. I love supporting people and offering them permission to know themselves, know their bodies, know their orgasm, know how to communicate in situations so that they can actually have the most fun and pleasure in everything they do, not just in the bedroom. And you know, our pleasure is not most of us compartmentalize it, but this is, you know, our sexuality and our spirituality are one and the same. And so with every breath you have and every, you know, um, every time you're in that heightened state of orgasm, it's the breath of God, which is in you. And so you're able to expand and be in this beautiful space. So um, it's, you know, when you want to receive, the art of giving and receiving, it really is an art form. that's how I look at it. And so I'll talk more about that in a little bit. And the wheel of consent, which is like what we shared a little bit at the retreat, and that's all based in the work of Betty Martin. So
Yes. So you said a lot, Lucia, because I feel like I when you said that we're in this culture of like we're kind of like self, like it's about self a lot, and we're not taking into account learning ourselves, but also learning what whoever else we're dealing with, what they need, what their pleasures are, what they feel good about. And actually being comfortable being vocal or being expressive about it, because I can think back from my own personal experiences. I was very quiet, and I didn't even, but the thing is I never knew, but that's from shame, and that's from programming from the past, from how I grew up, and still not being fully developed in all that I am. And so when you're like it took you getting into your 30s. I'm like, well, I'm 33 now, so I'm like, I understand that completely, because I feel like the shift happened as I got into my 30s, where I'm feeling more like I desire pleasure. I deserve pleasure. I am entitled to pleasure, but I also am entitled to providing pleasure, and for it to be an equal exchange, and to be open about my needs and desires. But I also want to make sure that I'm honoring myself, but I'm also honoring whoever else I'm dealing with, so we can take it to heights, because the sexual experience is it to me, since I've become awakened, like I want the high, like I want the high ultimate.
yeah, and I agree. I think, but here's the thing. Here's the thing about we all want to fucking be on this level of, you know, expanding, right?
Yeah.
Expanding our consciousness through pleasure and orgasm. But because of the way our culture is set up right now, we're in a fuck oriented culture. You know, we put so much value on penetrative sex, and it's very heteronormative.
Yeah.
You know, penis and vagina, and like that's it.
Hmm.
And you know what, the kind of, you know, pleasure I'm talking about is when we actually bring our senses out of atrophy, when we come into this place of reconnecting our nervous system and rebuilding those neural pathways. And what does this have to do with consent? What does this have to do with sexuality? Well, it's huge. And you know, I spent, you know, many years not only just being in present in it, like in researching, but um on multiple levels. You know, it's like, uh, for me, the journey of healing my body has included not only working with sexuality, but, you know, understanding how to use sacred earth medicine, for example, like psilocybin is something I use with my clients and myself to like reconnect to my ancestors and my wisdom around my pleasure and sexuality. You can't be in this life and heal your body without actually being connected to your sexual energy. It's your life force energy, your creative energy, and it is your most underused resource. And most of us are trying to figure out how to tap into it. But because our culture is so set on, society is so set on like getting to the climax, they're missing the fucking journey, you know? And
Ooh.
part is learning how to ask for and receive. Most women aren't used to receiving or learning how to ask for and creating a win-win, because whether you're, you know, however you identify, you know, if I'm talking about man woman dynamic, you know, I want to be able to be in a communicative um interaction with a man who is going to like match me on that level. So there's a way to ask for what you want and not like fucking put him down. Like I never start with I didn't like that or, you know, I don't like it. That is like that's castration right there. As a castration cycle, I always start with acknowledging that person, something good, giving them a task that they can win at, and then thanking them because, you know, my body is sacred and their body is sacred. We are born sacred beings. And so when we are interacting in this way, I'm going to treat that person as such. And so that's how I want to do it. And also because we are sacred beings and our, you know, when people talk about sacred sexuality, it just is. We're sacred. There's 1 in 450 trillion chance that you're even in this body. So you're gonna treat it as such. So understanding how that person is energy works, how that person is interacting with you. This is an art form. It's an art of sensual pleasure. Sensuality and sexuality are two different things. When you engage your sensuality, you're going to start to be able to like lean in and notice somebody and start to feel their sphere. Excuse me. And like when you cross that boundary, it doesn't feel good in your body.
Mhm.
Feel good in your body. I just want to take a moment and say I am looking at the chat. There is so much greatness. I just want to acknowledge, hi Cece. Acknowledge people in the chat and welcome people. I wish I could wave at you all. And there's some great pieces, but it doesn't let me go. Oh, it does let me go back. Mm.
Hey everybody, hey everybody. And if anyone has questions for Lucia, please put in the comments or send a question. Definitely. Hi. So we appreciate you guys for joining us. I'm feeling like a revelation. Like I feel like I need to get my book out because I want to write notes. As you're
Well,
talking.
you have to because this is going to be recorded, so you
Yeah,
can just
right.
watch it.
It's
So
right.
watch it after. It's gonna you can watch it after. But if you have questions, put them in the chat because it will support other people. And I want to say sometimes people are shy, and I can't look in the back chat. But if you have a question, most likely somebody else also has a question too. And that's what I've learned is that because when people start to like mix energies like this, they start to get on the same frequency. We're all here. We all know what you're here for. You guys want to have more pleasure and joy inside and outside the bedroom. And I want that for you. And so if you got questions on, you know, learning consent and intimacy, this is the time. And this is just going to scrape the surface, right? This is something that it takes practice. Anything that you want to do well, you must, be disciplined and practice. And I have to admit, um, I'm not very disciplined in my life in many things, but the one thing I am disciplined in is my sexuality and my sensuality and like really being able to enjoy and coming to the place of like this is my birthright to feel joy and pleasure. I'm gonna um, live in my pleasure. So I'm not gonna fuck around here anymore. And I don't want anybody else to fuck around here anymore either. Like, if you need anybody to say it, this is it. This is your time.
She
Thank
said,
you. I,
yes, you have to own it. She said, own it. You have to own it. It's our power, and like you were saying, like our sexual energy, that's our life force, that's our creative force, that's our passion, that's our drive. And so it is so important that we are tapped into all that we are. And when you were saying about, we look at sex just like, oh, let me get off, because
right.
I've always been about, let me get mine, but it goes so much deeper. And when you were speaking, what I thought of, and I messaged you about this a couple months ago, I was watching this documentary or series on Netflix. I forgot what it's called. Oh, Love, Sex, and Goop.
Yep.
Love, Sex, and Goop. And that was the first time that I actually, and you're like, this is what I do. But I was like, that was the first time I was actually awakened to how much, if we're actually working within the energy and working within, that experience of just really connecting with someone, really connecting with another being, how much healing it is for us and for them,
Woo.
and how much we elevate.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, you'll get to the point where you are just, your energy is just so aligned with them that you feel when they don't feel good or feel respected or feel something's off here. You feel that energy. You're like just it blew my freaking mind when I watched it. Oh my
It
god.
it's really amazing. And I just want to give props to Amina Peterson. She is definitely one of my colleagues and friends. She started Atlanta Tantra and she presences black and brown skin bodies and healing their bodies. And she's down in Costa Rica now and she's amazing. She's one of the incredible somatic sex educator, friend and colleague. And I just want to just put her out there because she was on, Sex, Love, and Goop, and she started to like make it normal to have these conversations and to do the work that we do. So I just really want to give a shout out to her because I love her, and I support her all the way. And Jaya was also on there, and she's somebody I've been on summits with, and also somatic sex educator, and she does the erotic blueprint. And so those things I just want to say that these are great places to go. There's we got to stick together in the field that we're doing and support each other, because I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and we got to share the information. So I wanted to say thank you to those women.
Yes, thank you to you guys. But the reason I was like, oh my God, that's what Lucia does. So I was really freaked out when I saw. I was like, oh my God. So I think I want to do this now. Anyway, stop going somewhere else. So getting back to this, let's like jump in.
Okay.
What consent? What is actually consent when it relates to sexuality or intimacy?
Um, that's a great question. Um, I believe that consent is two people by agreement deciding and choosing to have a mutual experience together.
Mm.
And that's how I would actually define consent, where two people um, or more people, because some of us prefer more, where we actually have the communications it takes to agree to have these experiences together. And so this comes in multiple forms. Consent is not just verbal. Verbal can be one of the best ways to to have gained consent from somebody, but there's also reading body language. There's also communications that happen where that that's okay to cross those boundaries too. So, for example, in the BDSM world, there are some communications where I know that um, one of the consensual boundaries is to um, break the boundary. so it can be complex and it can be easy, but ultimately, consent is what creates um, trust and
Mm.
in the relationship. When you Most people think, especially when I should not say most people think. Let me choose my words wisely. Oftentimes, what I've noticed is when people have been in a relationship for a long time, they start to develop this sense of ownership over somebody else. Um, think about it,
Yeah, yeah.
right? We start to think that that person is ours when
Hmm.
we forget the individualization of somebody and who they are as an individual human being in their own experience. So we start to lose sight of noticing them on a daily because we're so used to them, our energies start to meld, and we start to think that they're thinking the exact same fucking thing that we're thinking, and that's not true. It's like, this happens a lot. Maybe you've experienced it, Jaleisha, where you're just having one of those days where your body is, so frazzled, and you're building this energy in your body, and somebody comes up to you, who doesn't matter who, and they just do this like light, like, hi, babe, and they tickle you, and you want to turn around and fucking slap them.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. There's a process and reasoning around their biological process and stuff. But even in those situations, something as easy as, um, hey babe, I'm gonna put my hand on your back. Is that all right with you? Gives that person agency over their body.
Mm.
And sexy. That's where consent is sexy. And suddenly you go from being a potential perpetrator to somebody that is loving and revered as good in somebody's eyes. So one ask can change everything, and that person may also give you a wholehearted no,
Yes.
and that is good too. That's just as good as a yes, and that's so important to acknowledge. When I teach consent, I talk about um, the variety of ways that we can actually answer. It's not just yes or no. So,
Mm, yes. And then I think also, let me ask you, Usha, like the response that you give, does it matter how you say it? Because like if I feel like if you just say no, then how does that other person, they may perceive that as like rejection, or they could receive that as pushing them back, like, okay, you don't want me to do those things. I've seen it where in the couples where a person will never try to massage or touch or do anything else because at one time this person said no, I don't want that.
oh, yes, this is a huge one where um, something has happened where you have crossed boundaries and it's created like trauma in that person's body. And so it brings up that automatic response in the tone that, excuse me, in a tone that may not be healthy for anybody. There's This is a tricky one because in one sense, we're not totally responsible for how somebody perceives our, our yeses and nos, right? It's really not about you. It's about me, right? When somebody says no to you, it's not about you, it's about them.
Mhm.
And so, but because we're emotional creatures and our feelings get hurt, we often lead with feelings rather than the reality of the situation. And so when we lead with feelings, people's feelings get hurt. Yes, there's absolutely a way to communicate, but it takes practice. And most of us have gone through experiences in our life where we were taught, it's like I know I grew up in a household there was a lot of yelling and we're just loud people, we're loud Sicilian people. It's like, you know, you think somebody's mad, but nobody's mad, right? You can't take personally somebody says, and you really can't. But at the same time, when you are in that type of relationship where, you are in this back and forth, communication, there are ways of saying no and yes. And we can monitor our way of communicating. That being said, it doesn't always happen, right? Sometimes I'm like, no, don't touch me.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a second. I mean, I don't do that anymore, but I remember doing that. I remember doing that with my husband because I was just like, the last thing I need is to like, because in my head it was like, if he touched me, that means I was like, anything of relaxation was going to go out the door. I was suddenly, it was my mindset, right? I was like suddenly going to have to serve that person because my pleasure wasn't mine. It was on him, his pleasure. And that was like in the beginning, until I actually learned. So there's absolutely a way that we can communicate. We can communicate if you think about how you want to be spoken to. You take a pause. So a great way to think about this, Jaleisha, is to just take a sacred pause, which literally is
Mm-hmm.
no, I don't want you to touch me right now. Thank you though for the offer.
Yeah. Yeah.
This feels better. It feels better in your body. And when you go through that, your body might be like, maybe I do want to be touched. Because, you get a moment to pause. And most of us, somebody, a lot of people who talk about in relationships, they'll say the greatest thing that you could do for your relationship before you speak is to take a pause, is to take a sacred pause. And I, once I implemented that, like my life started to change so much. It's like the breath started to shift who I was. But you know, it's imperative that we understand that, like, there's so many dynamics that are at play, when talking about consent culture, because on one hand, because of our biological makeup, we could be totally turned on and wanting to have experiences with somebody. But at the same time, we're being told if we do that, we're going to be, we're going to be slutty, just as like an example. And so we might want to say yes, but we say no. And then we're giving out mixed messages. And then there's this whole like dynamic that takes place. And so I think learning consent, learning how to communicate your consent and communicate and ask for what it is that you want and create boundaries is essential. It's essential for like our evolution. And especially for people who have been in partnerships forever. Okay. My pussy is not your property. It's,
Woo, woo, that part. That part. Um, but that's huge because that goes back to communication. Communication is just so vital. It's huge and it's missed in a lot. I think of a lot of different relationships or connections that people are just denying being honest about what they need or what makes them feel good or what they actually want. And that's huge to say I'm not your property because I've seen where I'm going to use for male and female, but I've seen for a lot of women, especially older women, that it's just about serving or just serving the other person and
right.
forgetting that I am my own person. I am my own whole being. I have my own whole pussy. I have my own pleasure and I'm deserving of to be happy within and feel fulfilled, but it's more so, oh no, I have to please another being, another person. It's about them. And
And
we
I
don't.
gotta say, and I want to say something about that too, Delisha. Is like, um, there are. I mean, in the BDSM world, there's going to be people who are actually like, I am in service, and my pussy actually is somebody's property.
Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
and I want to say personally, um, I have both dynamics in my relationships. I do have a relationship with somebody where he's like, you know, in this certain dynamic he owns my pussy.
But see, that goes like consent though. That's like that's about
it's
that's
it's 100% consent. It's total
yes,
and it's total communication. And
yes.
so sexy. And to for me to feel like that, I don't ever feel like I'm not having my needs met. I'm actually feeling like this is everything in that moment, right? But that's not with everybody. It just happens that this person is like an incredible communicator and he's able to communicate those things to me in a way that has me feel safe and a lot of intimacy. I am able to create my safety. He gives me the spaciousness to do that.
Love
And
it.
nobody else can create our safety here. That's the other misnomer, is that they can create a brave enough space for you. But when people say this is a safe space, like hell it is not a safe space because you know it's a space, it's a brave space.
Yes.
Your body's going to do what it wants because it could remember that maybe something happened, and you have to be able to create your own safe enough space. And the way you create your safe enough space is to actually start to understand and learn about your body, and also start to come into a place of using consent, understanding what consent is. So you get the opportunity to create your boundaries, and most of us don't really know how to do that. I know I didn't know how to do that. I just thought I have to give and give and give and give, right? And so it took me a long time to be able to say no and feel that no is okay as well. I'm like, no, not right now. I don't feel like that.
And that's okay. That's definitely
Hey,
right. It's
yeah,
absolutely okay. What I want to ask you, Lucia, and people are saying intimacy is next level. Yes,
yeah,
it is. And someone else said safety and feeling safe to explore is important. um, I think that and what you said, Lucia, that we have to find our own safety within self, which is so important. I think I'm gonna speak for myself. I think one of my issues with intimacy in the past is that I wasn't feeling safe. I used to always say they don't make me feel safe. I don't feel safe with them. But really, I really wasn't safe within myself. I didn't feel safe with my own sexuality. I didn't feel safe speaking my needs. I didn't feel safe knowing what I desire. I would be the person that would just lay there and like count the bumps on the ceiling and just be like, oh, this is what this is. I was like, this is worthless because I just didn't have good experiences, but I also didn't know how to own my intimacy, own my sexuality, own my sensuality, own my body, own my pussy. Like I didn't know how to do those things. And so, Chris saying that feeling safe is so important. And what you said is well, safe. I think, yes, we got to feel safe within self, because the more you feel safe within self, the more you're able to speak up for yourself, the more you're able to own what you need, the more you're able to feel okay with honoring your boundaries and
Yes.
implementing your boundaries. So it is so important. And I had to learn that because I was looking for the safety, but I had to be the safety.
Yeah. Jaleisha, I'm so glad you brought that up because I think, a lot of the work I do with women really is about, you know, coming into a place of coming out of a trauma state.
Mm-hmm.
Body is real, especially with among Black women, and let's just like name that too, because going around feeling like you're always having to put up your guard in everything you do, can reflect into the bedroom, right? And let's add the layers of like ancestral trauma and experiences that we have the body, the autonomic nervous system will like bring up your shit the times that you least feel it should. And then you're like, how do I create this safe space? And it's like, this is why it's so imperative, I believe, for people to actually take the time to understand how their body responds to stimulus, to their own pleasure. And it might be different with another person. So, and somebody's bringing up ongoing consent and withdrawing consent at any time. I think this falls right into that, where when you actually understand that, you know, just because you said yes once in a relationship doesn't mean yes is the answer that's going to happen every time. And just because somebody else has said yes once, their yes is not like an absolute. This is an experience per experience. And this is where we have to be able to understand that that person is an individual.
Mm-hmm.
And even in the middle of a sex act, it's okay to change your mind. If your body is like experiencing something, it can be really difficult though to vocalize it. So being with somebody who understands you and how you respond to certain things is also another important thing. You know, and I had to say, like, I am not going to shame anybody for, having one night stands or different multiple partners, because I'm like that. I have multiple partners, and my boyfriend and I are swingers, so I have a lot of sexual experiences with different people. And so for me, it's like, um, how do you have consent in the moment? And you have to like talk. You actually have to say, hey, do you want to have this experience? And these are my boundaries. Like, there's no I don't do this and this and this. And I use condoms for oral sex, and I use condoms for penetrative sex. I don't. We don't have. I don't have anal sex in big groups like that. Whatever you need to say, but you are responsible. And I think that if you are going into an experience with somebody, the more you know about yourself and excuse me, I am so sorry for
Hey.
this coffee. But what I want to say is that, oh God, oh, I just want to be back in Jamaica is what I want to say.
You need water? Get something to Lucia?
Uh, that's okay. I can go get some water in just a minute. I don't want to like leave the live. But thanks for bearing with me. No, I don't have COVID for those tuning in. I just have a little bit of a cold. Um, so, understanding that, there's times where we're playing different roles in partnerships. So sometimes we're serving, sometimes we're receiving, sometimes we're the ones that are, you know, wanting to, we're being asked to serve. And that can be really fun as well. And then sometimes we're, wanting to actually ask somebody to serve us. And
Mhm.
so there's different ways to actually go about it, and it gets more complex. And I do teach this like in like my courses, and like when I'm working one-on-one, we go through a whole experience around consent. And so the thing to remember is that it's a process, and to forgive yourself. If you've crossed people's boundaries, know that they've also crossed people's boundaries before. Doesn't make you a horrible person, but it does, give you an opportunity to start to understand and learn how to be better at communication. And so communication is something that's not taught in schools. It's not taught, you know, um, around sexuality at all. It's usually something that we just think that is going to come about, but it is the one thing that's going to make your pleasure feel like 100 times more enjoyable, because you don't have to worry about. People are like, oh, I just want things to be spontaneous. Spontaneity is fucking overrated, okay? Like, I gotta tell you, when you set boundaries and container, there's a lot of spontaneity within that. Things that you may not have you thought you're going to experience come about. But what feels good is that your body can relax, because you've already given yourself the permission to experience something, and another person or other people to experience it with you. And so that is probably one of the best things you know I can say. And I think the workshop that you were at, we did a couple of things around touch, right? I think I did the 3-minute game, where we learned how to ask for a specific touch in a non-sexual way, and that was those kinds of exercises. And I think people don't realize, like, you can actually practice consent, right? You can practice consent. And when you start to practice consent, your body starts to become proficient in it. Your
Yeah.
brain starts to change, and it becomes something that's part of who you are. And I think that's worth saying. I think it's worth saying and practicing.
I I agree completely. Listen, you've given like so many tips and tools. The one thing I take from this though is that like you have to have someone that's probably mature, that's probably more able to be willing to communicate, willing to be open to your needs and where you're at and vice versa. Because if you're talking to someone who isn't understanding, or or there isn't this level of, okay, what do you need or what do I need? Because I honestly feel like this is a grown person conversation. This should just be normal, but it's not normal. But that's the way I see it. Like, I mean, maybe I'm a little bit naive, but I'm thinking like we should be having these conversations. I should be coming in speaking what I desire, or you speaking what you desire, and being loving and compassionate, showing grace to another person, even if what they desire may be different than what I want, even with there's levels to it, because even with and I'll just say this, even BDSM, a lot of times people are here like, oh my God, but there's levels to that. And so if you dive deep into it, then you might find out, oh, I might be a little bit more kinkier than I realized, and they might be able to stimulate me in this way. But it is about being open. It is about communicating. It is about learning about self. And that's what I'm taking from this. Like, we can speak it, but we have to be comfortable. But then that goes back to knowing who we are. Because if
Yeah,
you know who you
yes,
are,
I agree, Jaleisha. What you're saying is so real. And You know, I think it's worth saying that intimacy is not intimacy not is not sexuality.
no.
Intimacy is knowing that you can be 100% who you are at any time, and that person is still going to be there supporting you and be able to like hold you in that space of vulnerability,
Yeah.
and be vulnerable to trust that they're going to still be there for you. That's what intimacy is. Into me, I see.
Oh, yeah. Into me, I see. Yes.
And so, in consent, start you. It's like an adult conversation. It's actually something that children really know already. Like we
Mhm.
young kids are really, really good at consent. Like they will let you know their boundaries. They'll say,
Yes.
no, I don't want that. And we get all offended when kids don't want to be touched, but they're showing you boundaries. So it's actually a conversation we should be having at a young age with our children, and growing in this way with our children. Like, even their children are not our possessions either. We don't own them. I think this idea of ownership is something that has really um, been drilled into us. Like our kids, we own our kids, we own our partners, like we're partners, so you're mine, my man, my woman, like all that kind of stuff. I'm like, I even say it, my man. I love saying it because it feels like he's mine. But then I'm like, wait a second, the sense of ownership, so I try to stay away from like the my man, and I try to say, hey, the person I'm in a partnership with, or my boyfriend, or I just name him and I say his name because that feels really good. But the more I learn about consent, the more I see into myself. Yes.
Mm.
Excuse me, because it allows me to create a situation where I can be vulnerable with my partner. So if I'm asking, and I have a couple different ways to ask things. So, um, if I'm teaching the wheel of consent, there's certain ways of just asking outright. I also have something called, and it's good. People are gonna laugh. It's called the training cycle. It's easy, and I shared it earlier. Give the person, acknowledge them for something that they do well. Acknowledge them, find them right, give them a task that they can win it, and then thank them. So it's kind of like the waltz, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and this allows for you to ask for and receive what you want, and that person can say yes or no to any of those things. But it's just a nice way to gain consent.
Yeah.
Hey, so and so, I really appreciated how nice you made the room and the bed. It feels so great. Do you want to get on that bed and make out?
Ah, I see how you did that.
Love to. Oh, thank you. I would love to get on there now. What do you think about that? Mm. Yeah, I have a lot on my mind right now. I want to finish up the dishes real quick. Do you want to finish up the dishes first with me, and then I'd love to get on that bed.
Yeah.
So do you see just like a dance of consent? It's like yes, no. There's levels of being able to communicate and change. A yes, but a yes and, or a no, not yet. So there's different levels of how you can actually respond to somebody.
I like that. Oh goodness.
I know we don't not used to talk like that. We're not used to talking like that,
No.
and at first it feels really awkward to talk like that because it's so absolutely positive and fun to actually say yes. But most of us have been taught something completely different, which is the castration cycle rather than the training cycle, which is find the person wrong, give them a task that they can't win at, and let them know where they failed.
With the bell and put them down, pretty much. Put them.
Put them down. Like, shit, I can't believe that, you came so fast.
I'm
Can't believe you came so fast.
yeah. I'm doing it. Well, I'm guilty. I've done
You
that.
came fast, you know, um, it's like you should be getting down on my pussy every night. You don't satisfy me,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You're good for nothing. Right there, you just castrated that person.
Run, run like their whole self esteem is just like.
Right? Vice versa.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
vice versa. And so it's like it happens to a lot of people, and we think that just because that person's having sex with us that we can actually have like a conversation like that. And I'm guilty of that. Like I've had plenty of conversations like that.
I
where
have.
I'm just like, that doesn't feel that good.
And
And I turn on.
honestly, and honestly, Lucia, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't know like how bad I was talking. Like when I'm like engaged and stuff, I didn't know how bad it was. So I went to a retreat and I heard like you and Holly talking about, you can't put, you can't just tell somebody that they are not good. Because I was, are you serious? Are you? What was that? What was this? That was not good. Like I would be, but I thought that was me owning who like my desires, but that was me, like it was me being hurtful. Like and
Listen, and this is, I'm so grateful that you said that, Jaleisha, because I mean, this is, we all want, like, when we start to understand like our bodies and we're like, I'm an empowered woman and I can ask for what I want and da da da, and that guy is not giving it to me. They should know. They should just know how to do this. No,
yes.
we're actually lame creatures. We don't come with the manual. Most of us have not had those great experiences. And so if we want to have the things we want, we have to do something that we've never done before. So we have to learn how to like understand who we are, and give other people compassion, and know that like if that person is willing, and the conversations are best had before you're even fucking or sucking or doing anything. Okay, this is like the most important part. All these little consensual pieces, like, talk about them before, during, and after. But you know, in the middle of having some kind of sexual act, breaking somebody's balls figuratively, or you know, or ovaries, I guess, is it imprints, and it starts to leave scars. Like, that person is not good enough. I can't even tell you how many men I work with that like are, they're young and they can't get their dicks hard with women because they're so conditioned that they're not good enough. But I'll work with them for like a month and repatterning their brain, and then actually doing hands-on, Dow work with them, and their dicks are fine. There's nothing wrong with their dicks. It's their minds that are so programmed, right? And so once they actually have an interaction of what a healthy communication looks like and what it feels like to actually be approved of, there's nothing wrong. And same thing with people with clitorises. We shut down when we think, when like body shame issues, feeling like you're taking too long, all these things, or I have not coming, and we just tune out. And or there's this idea of like the tight pussy myth, right? Like, oh my god, like, is my pussy tight enough? That's all fucking bullshit. All of that bullshit. That's a whole nother conversation. Okay. But when we talk about this, it's like, um the imprints that are left have us feeling kind of numb. We atrophy, and so we start to, like, shut down.
Yes.
And so this is where consent and communication and talking starts to, the thing that makes sexuality sensual is communication. When we start to describe what we feel it, how we want it, we can have a lot of fun with it. And I guarantee everybody wants the same thing. We do all want to, like, have pleasure. We all want the same thing. And
Yes.
in the long run, we want the same thing. And, for different reasons, we've learned different things in different cultures and societies. And I think all people can benefit from communication, and it's the foundation. It's a foundation of having joy and pleasure in our lives. And because I firmly believe that we are born to not suffer and struggle, that we're actually born to love. It's just in Jamaica, and my spiritual father passed, and I was down there for his funeral. And Unc would say to me, Lou, peace and love, peace and love. And I would just be like, peace and love, Unc, Papa, I love you so much. And that's how we would live our, our time, have our time together, with eating well, communicating, looking at the sun, into the eye of God, feeling our joy and our pleasure, And I think about that, like that he had it so right. Peace and love, because that's at the end of the day, that's really all there is just peace and love.
That's
And
it.
pleasure and joy is part of that. And so people are like, we got to struggle in order to feel the good. I was like, no, you could just feel, you can actually, you don't have to always struggle. Like you really don't. You don't have to struggle. And not if you use your words, not if you communicate, you can actually be in pleasure and start to raise a vibration. And it took me a long time to understand that, because I also had a lot of trauma in my life, a lot of ancestral trauma. I mean, it's like, how women are treated in my culture is horrible. And, but that aside, you know, peace and love and pleasure really are enhanced through how we communicate with each other. And so I just want everybody to like win. I want people to win out there. I want you to have intimate, gratifying sex lives. I want you to be able to like come into a place where it's natural to like ask and love and feel good asking for what it is that you want. And I want you to feel good saying no as well.
Yes, Ashe. And,
Yeah.
and let me just say, Lucia, I'm so sorry for the loss of your spiritual father. So send in love with that. But the what him saying peace and love, that is exactly what we should experience in everything, not just everyday experiences, but you know how we see ourselves, how we interact with others, what we want to experience. Like, what do you really want to experience? If you truly, truly think about it, I just want to experience peace, and I do want to experience love, and I want to honor myself, and I want to be able to honor others, and that goes down to sensuality, it goes down to sexuality, it goes down to intimacy,
Yes.
all levels of dealing with another being. So, absolutely, yes.
Yeah. It comes with starting with you. It can't be, it's not overstated too much, nurturing our spirit and mind, heart, body, and soul, not compartmentalizing our sexuality from our spirituality. Um, those are the ways, those are the pathways.
It is. And I hope when people watch this on the replay, what I hope is that those who are hesitant or fearful, that maybe you do more research or reach out to Lucia, and I'm going to ask her to share how you can contact her, but or connect with that you'll find that once you tap into your sensual side, your sexual side, your pleasures, your desires, who you are, like actually who you are, you'll find that your confidence changes, the way you see yourself changes, that your environment changes because it's like it opens up something within you. It really does because this is your sacred womb, this is your sacred power, your sexual power, but it opens up another portal, another dimension, another viewpoint of how to experience life because it just shows you I am worthy of this. I am deserving of this, and this is what I desire, and this is how I want to be, like how I want to show up and how I want others to show up for me, and this is what I'm worthy of. And so I just implore you guys because we are here to experience good things and fucking amazing things, and sex and sensuality, all that shit's a part of it, intimacy, and we're deserving of that. We're entitled to it. So, yes. So, Lucia, I want to say, how can people connect with you? Because you're absolutely amazing, and a lot of people need help.
Support, I call it support. So I just want to say I have this viewpoint that people are perfect just the way they are. And my definition of perfection includes progress and change.
Love.
I Yeah, I think our culture has like really told people that they're wrong, they're imperfect or perfectly imperfect, and that's all bullshit. It like mind fucks us. So I just, if you could take that little thought process of like I'm perfect, and that includes progress and change. And yeah, if you want progress and change, I'm happy to support you, and especially in this field. So you can contact me if you're here on IG. Just follow me, and if you click on my little magic link, it will take you right to my website. It'll take you, to a complimentary discovery session. So you can have a one-on-one session with me, a discovery session where like there's a full intake form. If you're going through things and you want to, really understand like the process of whether it's learning about pleasure-based sexual education, learning about trauma healing, Tao pelvic healing, working with psilocybin in that process as well. All those things are discussed in those discovery sessions. And I work one-on-one. I have courses. And also, I work internationally. So, um, which is really wonderful. It's like I know in December I'll be probably in Jamaica doing a this is we haven't totally figured it out yet, but I have connected with a beautiful goddess. Her name is Empress Tondi. She's down in Jamaica, and we're going to be working with women in healing their trauma with psilocybin. So that will be a retreat weekend. Oh, I just want to also acknowledge one of my mentors, Mudu. I just saw it popped on. Hi, Mudu. Glad that you're here. And yeah, so you can contact me on IG. You can go to luciapavone.net. You can spy on me on Facebook. You can find me on Clubhouse. I'm on there often. Actually, I'm going to pop back on there. I'm in a lot of people's rooms talking not only about consent, but about pleasure-based sex, about gosh, it's about psilocybin, about healing our bodies, about spirituality, metaphysics, you know, tarot, all these things that are part of my life. So those are the basic ways, and I'm happy to speak with you. And, I don't look at what I do as work. I look at it as like following my purpose, and just, I feel blessed every day, feel very blessed every day.
Yes. Hey, my dude. She's saying, hey,
Oh,
hi.
it's him. It's a they, him.
Okay. Hey, him. Okay. Hi, my dude. I, I'm automatically assumed. I don't know why. I've never heard that name before, and I thought it was a she. But okay. Hi, my dude.
We
Nice.
all have masculine within us. So.
Yeah, we do. We do. It's a balance. It's a balance. Forgive me. I automatically assumed you were a female. Okay.
You
Hi.
know, and I'll just give a shout out. Mudu is one of the people heading up the Detroit Psychedelic Conference in late August, where I'll actually be speaking out there around healing our bodies with psilocybin, healing our sexuality in our womb space. And Lady Holly is going to be out there with me, and we're going to be doing some um, supporting of couples out there. So if you're in the Detroit area, or if you are really into like experiencing us, you can actually find me there. Please come to Detroit and I'll put, the link is in my bio too.
I saw that. Griselda can't wait. I saw that on Facebook that you were going. I think it was Facebook. So I'm like, oh, it's so amazing that you're speaking. So I know that the work that you're doing is so needed. I think it's undervalued,
Mhm.
really, because there's so many taboos and fears and stigmas, especially when we're dealing with sex and anything with sexuality, anything with that. But I feel like it's the deepest work we can get to because there's so much that's rooted in like our sexual energy and just at that area.
Everything in
Every,
our energy.
yeah.
It's our
And
energy.
yes, and to do that work, it's a labor of love. It's anything we do is labor of love. But when you do that, really, I just see transformation for so many people, and so that's why I'm just so happy for what you do. I'm very grateful that I feel like I'm getting emotional. I'm very grateful for
Hey, I've been
speaking.
all week. Julie, you want to cry? Go for it. You are loved.
Because I'm just thinking like this work just takes a labor of love and what you do is amazing. So I just thank you, and I'm hopeful that more people open their eyes to what is the truth and what it is to go deeper to really tap into all that we are, our power and what we're actually deserving of. So thank you, Lucia, for being who you are, and then also for speaking with me tonight and bringing your wisdom and your light.
I'm so grateful. I was really touched and honored when you reached out to Alicia. It was so great to be in Texas back in the fall, and I felt very honored to be in the presence. It was a great retreat, and I recognize that, I came in as like the white lady, to like a melting retreat, and to put a lot of trust into, into me was, I felt very blessed to be able to be there to support you, and to everybody who was there. And I learned so much. I think that when we're in this field, and I think our words are really important to choose them. So on this journey, I used to think that, I used to say labor of love often, but when we think about labor, like we think about like trudging through. So I started to like shift that for myself and be like, well, this is really just a journey of pleasure. This is my pleasure journey. Like this is just a journey of like experiencing my pleasure to the fullest, like having my senses lit up till it lit up so I can feel
Yeah.
light and love and peace and love. And so that's really like what our bodies are meant to do. They're really meant to be, we're just filled with like, we're big magnets. And, most of us are atrophy. All of those nerve receptors are atrophy. And the things that like light us up that we, you know, I call it our inner apothecary. And I'm gonna actually be talking about this in Detroit. Our inner apothecary lights up through a couple different ways. And the same process that happens in being in a heightened state of orgasm is very similar to what happens when you're using psilocybin in that heightened state. Your pineal gland opens up and you start to come into this consciousness that has you feeling euphoric in some ways. And also you start to come into your truth and your wisdom. And so when you come into that place and you're feeling those good feelings, it starts to shift you and heal your body. And that's how you heal your body. That's like the very basic. That's the basic.
I'm getting chills, but you said so much, Lucia. Just okay, you like sparks are going off. Pleasure, a journey of pleasure instead of saying labor. That just like, oh wow, because I'm thinking, yeah, because when you say labor, that's like we are having to like dig and
We're staying in the struggle, right? Like when you think of labor, don't you feel like like heavy? I feel heavy.
yeah, and that's not what this is at all. A journey of pleasure. Oh gosh, I feel like I'm being taught so much, and I'm grateful.
Uh, Remember, it's a raw flexion.
Yeah, Ashe, Ashe, yes. Oh God. Okay, okay. So yes, everyone. I'm thankful for everybody that's been watching, and I guess I mean if there's no other questions, I'm saying because I've kept you for like an hour and like 15 minutes, but this
You
has
know,
been
yeah, letting go of like time. Time is just like a construct that like we're conditioned into thinking exists, but there's
yes. It's not real. Time is illusion. And what I was gonna say, I had questions, and I knew Spirit was gonna work the way Spirit was gonna work. So everything flowed the way it needed to, and everything that you said was just enlightening, and it just kind of opened my eyes. I'm gonna go back and watch this video when it's posted because I need to sit with self to really digest everything. But I'm so appreciative, and y'all, please follow her. Click the button and please follow her. If you need assistance, you have questions, reach out to her, book a session with her, enlighten your mind because you are worthy of that. And I love the idea what Lucia said that it's not, and everything you were saying is so on point, that it's not people that need help or that like help me. We're already perfection. We're
mm,
already, and we're I forgot the word terminology you used, but we're already perfection, but maybe just
we're perfect, and the my definition of perfect includes progress and change.
yes, progress and change. Yes, yes, that's exactly what it is. So I just implore you guys to follow her. Oh, they said they will. Yay, good. Follow her.
Oh, yeah, I'm like looking now. Thank you. And you know, I apologize for all the coffee tonight. I probably should have some water, but I just got off a plane like 24 hours ago or 48 hours ago. So
No,
yeah, I've been sleeping for 2 days.
I understand because once you get off, and especially coming from out of country, out of town, you want rest, and so the body is probably is shifting because of because
Yeah, your body never lies. It tells you what it wants. And so I've been learning to listen. And actually today I actually sat outside and I did some integrative work with psilocybin for myself today. So I'm probably like in that zone of coming out of like a little bit of my own journey today.
yes, I love it though. But okay, well, I mean, I don't know. Did you have anything else you want to add, Lucia?
God, I love you and I'm grateful. I mean, it comes down to that. Like, I just have so much gratitude for just being able to be on here and have these conversations because, when we talk openly about, the little things that seemingly little things, that's really where it's at. It's like we could talk about giving great head or, you know, whatever, stroking the clitoris, right? But I think when we talk about the foundation, which is communication and what that really looks like, not just verbal communication, so many ways to communicate with somebody. It really starts to make it so that you know, we can live in peace and love, peace
Yes.
and love.
And have better experiences with people, better experiences with others because the line of communication is open, and then at the same time you're able to really go deeper. So you're able to go deeper than what you can imagine just of let me just get myself off or get them off, you know. So it's needed. These conversations needs to happen, and so I'm just
More
grateful.
conversations. It'd be really fun to just have, I mean, I do this every day. I like having conversations every day, but, I love it. Please keep doing what you do, Delisha. Keep doing the journey for yourself because it doesn't matter where you're at on the journey because somebody's always going to learn and you're always going to be learning. So just know that like you're doing. I see you. I've been watching you. Don't you
Thank
think?
I'm like so and this is just side note and then I'm gonna go but I my whole thing with the journey is like oh my god I want to do this I want to do this maybe I'm going here maybe I want to go here and then so, but then I have been what I've come to understand I've been trying to control a lot of things I've been trying to like I want it this way and now I'm in a season of surrendering so and I'm being drawn to different things and so now I'm like okay what I thought was part of the what my path or whatever my purpose, even though it is my purpose, it's expanding the thought process. And so I will be honest, I love anything about sex. I love it because I love it because there's so many layers and it goes so much deeper than what we know, what we're used to, and that all the power, all of like our manifestation, who we are, it's in our sexual energy, it's in that sacral chakra, and so it's so important that we do the work to try to
Woo.
release.
Yes, I would say it's important for us to remember how to play, and and we don't have to work at any of it. We can just play, and people think playing and fun is frivolous, but it's really, fun is something that is an honorable goal. And if you're gonna have a goal, make fun that actually part of your vision. And I was thinking about that, when um I was in Egypt at the end of February, and or in February. I guess I was there around 2022. So that's when mid-February. And I remember, um, floating down the Nile to the Temple of Philae, which is where the Temple Iset is, Isis's temple,
Mm,
staying off and stepping onto this like holy sacred space. And I could immediately feel like what had gone on there. I was like, this was like one of my temples. Like I know I was part of and this is like part of my lineage, right?
mhm.
And I could feel that energy of play. and sacredness in, what we call sacred sexuality. You know, that terminology comes from, people trying to understand the state of consciousness and state of being, a natural state of being.
Mm.
So because we are sacred and, you know, Kemetic traditions revered sex. They knew what was up. They knew that that was how they lived through that pleasure and through that joy and through psilocybin. So it's all connected right there. That's an easy version. Yeah, keep playing. You don't have to work at anything if you keep playing, keep communicating, keep playing, and um, you know, keep your eye on the prize, which is your joy.
Joy. Absolute joy. Absolute joy. Thank you, because I before I feel like that was the childhood stuff, like the trauma. I think trauma is the like programming of like I gotta work, but this is supposed to be my joy, and I'm supposed to be having fun, and the inner child wants to play, and the inner child wants to explore and be open, and like let whatever flows, and let the doors open, and just walk through whatever door it comes forth to you and enjoy the whole process. So that's where I'm at. And I want to make sure everyone that I know that's around me that they are opening, or at least they hear these tidbits, or they hear these nuggets, because we need to keep informing everyone else around us to free themselves, so that way they can be in the joy and in the bliss and be.
You're the only one who can heal your body.
Yeah, yeah.
You're the only one like who can make that choice. So like to make a um a deliberate choice to like go and the seek the journey that you're after, and there's so many people out there who want to support that, including myself, Lady Holly, Jaleisha. Like, it's time. It's time. This is like our planet, our humanity is like, it needs this. It needs us to like do our deep dive and our unravel and come back into play and joy, pleasure, because our bodies are just like struggling. Most
Struggle.
people's bodies. So, in order to move away from the struggle, you have to learn how to play, and consent is part of play.
It is.
And the intimate is, with yourself is part of that.
Look, this is not a game. I'm gonna say, once you tap into that, it's like a whole. You're like, who was I? I'm not even. It's like a totally different. It's a shift. It's totally different. It's a transformation. It's an
Yep.
evolution
That's
itself.
solution. And it connects. It's not just like about our sex lives, it's about our families, our children, our financial um, connectivity, our connection to the land, our
Hmm.
spirituality. It's all connected.
Tie it all into one, and overall making us more of having a whole experience as a whole being. It's a
Yeah.
whole.
Yes.
That's needed. So I love this conversation so much. I'm so grateful. I love you. I think you guys please once again follow Lucia. This won't be our last conversation. Of course not. Who knows what the journey will lead to, because I don't know. I'm very open. Whatever flows, flows. But I do know what you do, I love absolutely so much. And so I'm so.
Thank you. And vice versa.
Well, you have a good night, love, and
Thank you.
please drink some tea or some water.
Just a minute. Thank you.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Ciao. Bye.